Okay. If we get somebody's story, all right, let's make this a two-parter here. Let's say somebody tells you a story about an event. We're going to make it a labor dispute. It was a strike, okay? And then, 5 years later, you or somebody else interviews them again. They tell a somewhat different version, okay? What are you going to do? You're going to say, oh, number one was right and number two is wrong? Or what are you going to, how are you going to interpret that piece of history?
Like it's two different opinions.
Yeah, it was from the same person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you find another person or more leads?
That's certainly one way to go about it. You talk to some other people and see what they say. Yes.
Look for the similarities between the two.
You can look for the similarities between the two. Okay. Think about it though. The nature of the interview is that people at different times in their life, view the world somewhat differently and view the events in their own life somewhat differently. So, it's very difficult to say that, oh, this is right and this is wrong, or this is not as good as the first version, because the person has changed. And this is one of the frustrating things about oral history, but it's also one of the fascinating things. Let me give you an example, okay? There was an Italian historian, his name is Alessandro Portelli. Okay, I love to say that. Alessandro Portelli. Can I say it again? No, that's all right. Alessandro Portelli. Okay. Now, what he was doing, we'll go back to the slide. He was interviewing auto workers in Turin, in Italy. All right? And he was doing his interviews in the 60s or the 70s. And these people were getting on a little bit in age. And very consistently, the people he talked to collapsed time. They identified the Allied liberation of the city of Turin from the Germans in early 1944 or whenever it was, and strikes by auto workers that took place 3 years later. I mean, to them, this was all one liberating experience. Now, we can go and we can say, oh, they're wrong. This happened in 1944 and this happened in 1947. It's very easy to do that, to say, they're old, they're confused, they got it all mixed up, they got their dates all screwed up, we'll disregard this. But the oral historian probably would not disregard. The oral historian would say, why are so many people getting these two events which happened 3 or 4 years apart? Why are people collapsing these events? What do you think? Why might we want to think of the fact that they are really messing up chronology? Because we can say this happened here and this happened here this time and this happened this time. Why do you think it might be significant to sort of think about why they compress these events? Yes?
Both events had the same impact on their lives.
Right, yeah. What we're talking about here is less the quote-unquote facts of the past, because the facts would clearly separate these events. We're talking about how somebody experiences the past. How certain experiences come together, make them the person they are, make them the person who looks a certain way at the world. And for this group of people, I mean, if one person does it, you can say, oh, let's just get a little soft in the head, or they've had a little too much red wine. But, yes, there's quite a lot of that going on too. I'm sorry, the president would kill me if he heard me say that. Yes, I was just university drive against these things. But, if you get enough people saying this, then you go, aha, something's happening here. For them all, it's this, liberating experience, and not just liberation from the Germans, but sort of liberation from the bosses and wages going up and all of that. So, just because somebody, quote unquote, makes a mistake about the past, doesn't mean to say that's not historically significant. We need to think about that. All right. Okay. I think we're, oops, no, that's it. Nope, we're going back there. And I'm not going to do that one. This computer takes a moment to think. There we go. Okay. Two types of oral history interview. One is pretty obvious. One is topical or thematic. You've got a subject. You know, you're investigating an issue. You're investigating people's memories of an event. And you know, you focus on that and you talk to a number of people about it. And the second, and this is sort of fairly structured, the second is what's sometimes called a life story oral history, which is less structured. And really it's sort of, somebody tells the story of their life. It's, you know, somewhat chronological in structure. You know, folklorists and some anthropologists tend to do a lot of the life story stuff. Historians tend to stay a little bit more on topics and themes. Okay, we're going to skip through this. Okay, so let's talk about the interview itself, okay? What the interview is. And this is my sort of favorite quote from a folklorist, Bruce Jackson. It's a purposeful involvement in other people's lives. And anytime you stick a microphone in front of somebody and ask for an interview, you know, you're getting in their face a little bit. And there are certain legal and ethical implications. What's the difference between having a conversation with somebody and doing an interview with somebody? What do you think?
Conversation will be the interview. You can ask personal questions. Conversation, you just really make small talk.
Yeah, okay. A conversation is a casual exchange, okay? Yes?
Conversations are both ways, interviews are one way.
Interesting. All right, yeah. Well, I think we would hope that interviews would be both ways. We'll get into that. That's an interesting that you kind of identified it that way. You know, I'm not saying you're wrong. Nobody's wrong. But yeah, conversations are kind of casual. An interview is something more formal. Anytime you sit down with a recorder and a microphone and you interview somebody, there's something formal going on. Oh, this is serious stuff. Yes?
I say there's no difference.
There's no difference.
We don't see a difference.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you see a difference?
You're doing the exact same thing.
Okay. If we're hanging out in the corridor and sort of chatting away, okay, and then I say, what's your name? Edward. I say, Edward, would you please come and sit down in this chair, and we're gonna do an interview with somebody. Don't you think the situation's changed a bit?
Not for me personally.
Not for me personally, yeah.
No, I
Interviews all the time.
Interviews all the time. Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I mean, you know, I'm used to being interviewed and used to interviewing, but I think for many people that is a little bit of a fun.
I mean, both are really a conversation, but one is just kind of either writing it, what the other person's saying down.
Or recording it, yeah. Yeah. Yes?
I believe that a conversation has an expectation of privacy. In an interview, you have to let the person know that what he's saying might be used.
Okay. I think that's an important distinction there, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Which, goodness me, censors up here to this word, trialogue. I'm not sure if it's in the dictionary or not. Let's suppose for the moment that this is some recording device. I mean, anytime you sit down and interview somebody and there's this device there with a microphone or there's a camcorder or whatever, there's another, you know, you're not the only people in the room, okay? There's an audience out there. Now, it may be a small audience, it could be a large audience, but I think that's one of the key things. Now, you and I may be as relaxed in either situation here. I'm used to cameras, you know, no big deal, you know, I'm not intimidated by them, you know. Spent half my life in TV studios, but you know, for a lot of people, you know, this means there's a consciousness that there is an audience out there, and you know, I'm not just talking to Edward. You know, I'm talking to, you know, a whole group here, or to a television audience, or whoever.